like I described it, in the box with a screwdriver, with the extra sight, with a registration certificate, is right now running between 20 and 30,000. It's an incredibly collectible gun. I mean, I started to buy them when you could buy them for $300. I mean, nobody collected it. They shot out of sight beginning in the early 90s. There's no question that Smith & Wesson is concentrating more on auto-loading pistols, on polymer guns, because that's where the market is. They certainly haven't forgot the powerful handgun market by introducing the 500 and the 460, which are both, you know, among the world's most powerful handguns and are super handguns for hunting. It was a discussion between Doug Wesson and Matt Robertson at Winchester Western to, instead of calling it 38, to call it the actual bore diameter of 357 and call it the 357 Magnum. Just to further separate it from the 38 Special. It was saying the original boxes were stored in a vault like this. And the problem was that as the production increased and demand increased, when the shipping department would reach in and grab the thing, they'd grab the box like this and the thing would fall apart and the gun would end up on the floor. So then they decided that they would put the label on upside down, and then you'd grab the box and you had the bottom on the top instead of on the bottom, and you wouldn't, you know, drop the gun on the floor and destroy it.
Yeah, but are they worth anything to collect?
Oh, of course, yeah. I just sold one box for $750. But not that, a little earlier. I actually bought the original factory in 1970. They were about to destroy it, rip it down. It still housed D.B. Wesson's original office. And I bought it because when I went and looked in it, over the fireplace in his office was this great big hand-carved by Gustav Young S&W logo. And I thought, oh God, I'd just like to have it. And so I took that down first. And then when I took that down, I said, well, why don't I just take this whole office? and then I started to look through the building, and I found that there was still a lot of old records tucked away. So I said, well, I might as well take these too. And I ended up with over 750,000 documents on Smith & Wesson, of which all these letters came from. And I have since donated those to the Springfield History Museum. And right now, the Smith & Wesson Collectors Association sister company, the Smith & Wesson Historic Foundation, is busy paying to have all of those documents digitized so that they'll be available for easier research for future collectors. The machinery, most of it was moved to the new factory. The interesting thing is that the original downtown factory, all the machinery in that factory was DC. And Smith & Wesson was the last DC-powered company running in Springfield. And the electric company was so glad to get rid of all the DC generators and see Smith & Wesson convert to AC when they moved to 1950. But all the machinery, when I first went to Smith & Wesson, they were still using a lot of equipment that had been originally built in the 1880s. The stock checkering machines were all driven from the 1880s. The last of the original pieces of equipment to go were the weight reamers for the cylinders. And they used those and finally got rid of them about 1998. The biggest and the most important change that occurred for Smith & Wesson was when the English company Tompkins purchased Smith & Wesson. And what they did is they modernized the company, and they put $90 million in CNC equipment and brought the Smith & Wesson right up to be the most modern manufacturing handgun company in the United States. Oh, it was all destroyed. The office is now, his office is now my office in my house. Now, and Peter, my brother-in-law, also has bits and pieces of it. Sales of all the firearms in the United States right now are booming. Smith & Wesson is, oversold. Ruger's oversold. And as the possibility of legislation builds, the sales build with it. First order of the Australian new model number 3s went to New York City distributor M.W. Robinson. And it would be my guess that since Smith & Wesson didn't make cartridges, that he would have worked a deal with either Remington Union Metallic cartridge company or Winchester cartridge company, and that they would have shipped them with the guns directly from New York City. So it'd be very difficult to say how they would have been packaged. From orders that I have seen that were shipped through Smith & Wesson to other countries, they generally would buy them in like 20,000 lots, and they'd be packaged in regular ammo boxes. But that doesn't mean that that's how they would have gone to Australia. They could have easily bought them in bulk in wooden cases. But it's a difficult question because of the fact that since Smith & Wesson didn't package them, and since they didn't ship them, they were all shipped out of New York. The last group were shipped directly from Smith & Wesson. The ones that went out in the '86 period went directly here to Australia. The holsters were all made here. Yeah. I remember when Jim Severns brought all of the Australians back to the United States, and he bought a bulk of them back in the shoulder stocks, and they all just got mixed up when he sold. Someplace out in the ocean are all the really great engraved and super Smith & Wessons that we shipped over here for the Australian exposition.
Yes.
And the boat got sunk, and then we had to rush another group over to a guy by the name of Page, Lyman Page. I have in my office 10 million serial numbers going from 1857 all the way up to what we're making. But you've got to understand that in some cases it depends on the period. In some cases it is quite interesting. But if you've got a gun from 1857 to 1869, 98% of those are going to go to J.W. Stores in New York City, because he was Smith & Wesson's sole agent. M.W. Robinson was store's clerk, and then he takes over the business because Smith & Wesson were tired of paying stores a 5% royalty on everything. So they brought stores into the company to be the treasurer of the Wesson Firearms Company shotgun, the first deluxe American-made double-barreled shotgun. Robinson then becomes the distributor, as a regular distributor, buying at discounts and selling, no royalties, no extra bonuses or anything. He just got a really good discount. From that point on until you get into the 1880s, Robinson's the largest distributor. Almost 90% of everything is shipped through M.W. Robinson. The exception, and you're very lucky in the sense, the exception in a lot of cases are stuff that's going overseas. To England, then there were some Australian distributors. Some of those there are individual invoices for, and it didn't go to just M.W. Robinson, New York, as part of a 100 or 200 unit shipment. And as you get into the late 1880s, 1890s, early 1900s, then it becomes a much wider. The cost of a new model number 3, for example, until you sell it was $17. The cost to make it was $6. I can tell you that it was a very lucrative business. In 1865, the Springfield newspaper published Horace Smith and D.B. Wesson's income, and they were the only two 6-digit people in Springfield. They each took home $165,000 each in 1865. It was, very, and they were very, very generous. Wesson started several hospitals in Springfield, did a lot for people. Horace Smith saved a lot of colleges. He saved Booker T. Washington's college in Alabama, poured a lot of money into blacks. He started a lot of places that helped single mothers and child care in the 1860s and 70s. And so they did give a lot of money back to the community.